Hey y'all, it's Cyber Saloon. So a couple weeks ago, I uploaded my video review of Sword Art Online, Scherzo of Deep, and I really enjoyed that film. I really enjoyed watching them adapt the fifth floor of Aincrad, and Scherzo of Deep is actually my favorite novel in the series. So it was really fun to see them adapt that. I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on Aria of a Starless Night. I think Aria of a Starless Night is really good. I think Scherzo of Deep is better, but I still think Aria of a Starless Night is definitely worth seeing, especially if you're a fan of the series. And it lays a lot of important groundwork for the series as well. So Aria of a Starless Night is essentially a retelling. Progressive is a series is essentially a retelling of some of the events that happen in Aincrad, and it follows kind of Asuna's kind of point of view, especially from the first novel. So in the novel, it's an adaptation of floors 1 and 2. So that follows not only when they beat the big the Kobold Lord, but it adapts when they beat the second floor as well. Whereas with the film, it only adapts the first floor, and I'll talk more about that later. So the film does a really good job at showing the events of what happened at the very beginning of Sword Art Online from Asuna's point of view, I'm glad we get to see that, because it does a really good job at setting her arc up and showing how far she kind of progresses, not only in the film itself, but kind of in the series as a whole, especially in coming from when we see her a little bit later in the first season. Because what you see kind of the beginning of the film, Asuna has a little bit of experience with video games. She plays with Mito a lot, but this has changed a little bit. So in the novel, it kind of states she plays a little bit of mobile games, but in this one, it seems like they make her and Mito they play certain fighter games and stuff like that. She's a little bit more in the video games, but she isn't that experienced with them. She plays video games, but she's not someone that plays it all the time. We see she has a very kind of regimented kind of life at home, and that she isn't too used to playing them. We see it delves into some of the kind of darker aspects of Sword Art Online. So we see when everyone gets teleported to the square, and Kayaba tells everyone that hey, you're stuck here, and kind of lays out the whole foundation of Sword Art Online, that if you die here, your brain's gonna get fried. So it lays out some of the darker aspects we kind of don't get to see in the first couple of episodes. Thousands of people die in the before they even beat the first floor boss, the Kobold Lord. So we don't really get to see that much of that. We kind of just hear about it after when you get to the second episode with Kirito and Asuna. Everyone's kind of in it on a dour note. We're never going to be able to beat this game, and we've already lost 1,000+ people. I think it's about 2,000 at this point. And everyone's just kind of on a dour note, but we kind of get to see a little bit of the darker aspect is after they leave the square, because there's this A1 did a really good job in this. And this is one of the examples I want to show you can kind of see how a lot of people died. So Mito and Asuna are kind of running away, and then these low level kind of dire wolves just show up. And one of them gets past Mito and just bites into Asuna, and they did a really good job of just showing the fear. They did a good job. You can see it in the eyes, and you can just kind of tell oh, there was probably a lot of people that kind of freaked out and ended up getting killed by lower level NPCs that probably didn't know better. And you can kind of see how that happened when those two dire wolves nearly attacked Asuna. It makes you think as well, Klein and Kirito were practicing with those hogs on one of those sky islands in the first episode, and it kind of makes you think if Kirito just jokingly let Klein die, or brought his HP down, because but before they didn't know, they would have died. So it's just it makes you think how many people might have accidentally died just from because people didn't know it was it was real at that point. But you also see a scene later where Mito and Asuna are in a dungeon, and Mito tells Asuna the duck, because this team is just getting destroyed by this mob, and they really can't do anything. It kind of shows you that aspect of oh wow, you can really believe that hey, 2,000 people really did die here, because it's they really don't know what they're doing. And I'm glad that the film kind of builds that aspect of it, because you could oh yeah, we can definitely tell how 2,000 people died, because some of these people, a decent amount of the people who are in Sword Art Online, it's Asuna, for example, she doesn't have that much video game, especially MMO type experience, so you can understand how oh yeah, I can understand how thousands of people died here. So it kind of delves deeper into that kind of aspect of it. because we see that like the headset itself, like that it's her brother Kojiro's. I'm kind of surprised. This one kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, Asuna has a brother, like because she never talks about it like in throughout the series, and it's like her brother, like of course, like he has an overseas trip, and that and Asuna is like just wants to try it out because it's just like, oh, like it's meant to be for him, but I want to kind of try it out because it's like this big thing. She sees an ad for it at the beginning, and that's kind of what grips her in. And kind of Mito and Kojiro are kind of like the two catalysts that get Asuna in the game. Kojiro's in the book, and like it kind of sets it up similar in the book. Like her brother couldn't log into the game because he has an overseas trip. But in this one, Mito's also a catalyst to try to get her in the game as well, because Asuna knows that Mito, of course, is going to play the game as well. So that's adapted pretty well. We also get to see that I hope a little bit later in this year she brings this up more, because it's like Kojiro really isn't mentioned too much from what I remember in any of the rest of the seasons, which is surprising because she seems like she was really close to her brother. And I just kind of hope that, like, she kind of expands on that and kind of, like, talks more about maybe her relationship with her brother. Because it seems like her brother and her are kind of a little bit close. But I doubt that'll probably ever get expanded on. Maybe, I feel like I don't know. Maybe when they get to the end of the progressive series and, like, it's them all logging out, maybe. But I don't know. I doubt it. And then, of course, Mito's an original character for the movie. And we will definitely talk about Mito later. The story, again, the movie itself is essentially a retelling of episodes 1 and 2, just more so from Asuna's standpoint and her point of view. But it's really cool because it's really cool to see how kind of Asuna started out. And I think she has such a great arc, like not just in the movie, but just in the novels as well. Think about like where she starts out, like at the beginning. Like, of course, we have characters like Kirito and people who are in the film Mito that are kind of experienced MMO, and like we see, of course, Argo later. They're kind of experienced MMO players where they're kind of used to it, and they kind of know what's going on. But also, like, there's a lot of people in the game like who are playing literally know just nothing about MMOs or games or anything like that, like raids. Like, they're not things that they're really experienced with. And Asuna has such a great character arc because she starts out, think about like where she starts out with Mito, where she's just like scared all the time. And like where she ends up is she's the sub commander of like and she's one of the best players in the game, and she ends up being this completely like badass. Because at the beginning, she's scared all the time, she's worried, she doesn't want to be there, she's depressed, and even in the film she has a really good character arc. So in the film, she starts out with Mito, and Mito is kind of her protector and kind of just like is trying to show her the ropes. But Asuna is like, it kind of builds her confidence a little bit, but not to the point that it gets later, not just in the film but in the series as well. So after Mito kind of ends up betraying her, and she just goes back into town, and she's depressed all the time. She locks herself in, cries herself to sleep every night. She kind of has this. She has this really like fatalistic attitude of like, well, I don't want to die a coward. If I'm going to die, I want it to be, going down fighting, which is admirable. So instead of like staying in the town and just staying at the inn and being depressed about it the whole time, she's like, well, I want to get out there and face it. I want to face down my death. Instead of just cowering here and just hoping someone comes. She ends up buying like 3 or 4 of every weapon, does like 0 maintenance on any of her equipment, and just basically goes on like a suicide run, just going like delving deep in the new dungeons and just going ham and just taking out like a bunch of different enemies. Like she like by the time Kirito finds her, because this is kind of where it starts in the light novel. Mito is not a part of the series. She's an anime original character. So this is kind of where Kirito and Asuna technically meet, because in the film, when Mito betrays Asuna, but when she leaves Asuna, Kirito saves her from that big like dinosaur ape thing, and that's the first time that she sees him in the movie. But in the series, when they first meet, Kirito finds her in a dungeon, and she's been down there for weeks. Like, she hasn't left. She just sleeps in safe areas, just going absolutely ham. Like, oh, I've worn out my sword here. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to get a new one. I'm just going to equip a new one. not efficient, and it's obviously really dangerous, especially when she's playing solo like she is. And Kirito kind of makes a comment about it. She kind of has where she's at right now, and like she has like this piss off attitude. So she's gone from someone who's scared all the time, doesn't know what to do, to having this kind of fatalistic kind of like attitude of, well, I'm just gonna die anyway, so who gives a shit. And then Kirito's like makes a comment about it, and then she's like, well, I'm gonna die anyway, so what's the point of like going back and sleeping and just waiting in an inn and just coming back later to die, opposed to just dying, you know, like in a couple of hours from just a couple of monsters. Like a really depressing kind of mindset that she's kind of developed. And then she ends up passing out from exhaustion, of course. And then so Kirito and her, he claims he saves her because she wants the map. He wants the map data. But of course we know that's not why he did it. Kirito wouldn't have just left someone like that alone. Even if it was someone else, he would have at least, you know, carried them out of a dungeon. But he kind of notices like she has this. Even though her strategy is just kind of suicidal, he notices that she's very skilled and she's very driven. So that's kind of where he brings her at with ends up taking her to Tolbana later. It kind of took me a minute. I was like, hold on here. I was like, a couple meeting in the dungeon. I was expecting a Minotaur to run by at this point. I was like, Bell, Eyes, are they down there too? Like, shoot. But that's how they meet in the novels, and you kind of see it halfway through the film that's how they meet in the as well, like properly. Asuna recognizes him, but he doesn't recognize her. So I want to talk about Mito. The reason I do not like Mito as a character is specifically because she's unnecessary, and I think she takes away from Asuna as a character, and I also think she takes away from the film, and I want to explain why. But I want to start out with the pros. First pro, I think she's a cool character design. She has a freaking scythe. She's got the purple hair and the red eyes. I think it looks really cool. I think she has a really cool personality. She's kind of like, she has that kind of like, you know, she's experienced. She's a badass. She's confident. She kind of knows what she's doing. She got that kind of gamer grill kind of aesthetic going on a little bit. She's basically, let's be honest, she's a female Kirito, because even when it shows in the film, like it's very obvious to see that Mito was very much one of the top players, and not just in the beta, but even in current SAO, she's easily one of the top players. And she knows a lot what she's doing. There's a lot of aspects to Mito which I like. I just don't think overall she's a necessary character, and here's why. So I think she actually takes away from Asuna's arc. I think that it's a better story in an arc to me for a character like Asuna, who didn't know anyone in the video game, like in Sword Art Online initially at all, to go through what she did, to where where she like just cried herself to sleep every night because she doesn't know what's going on. She just wants help. She didn't know anyone, to just developing this fatalistic attitude, and then just becoming this absolutely driven badass, like, who, you know, they're not just going to cower away with their life, to ending up to becoming what she was. Mito isn't really necessary because Asuna still has that arc. Like, it's a little bit in the film that she has that, like, kind of bitterness from getting betrayed, not so much at Mito itself, but just the act of, like, she doesn't really trust Kirito at the beginning. Like, you see it hesitantly. She'll look at the thing like, oh, it's a party thing, but overall, like, Asuna still has that same exact character arc if you take Mito out. Like, if you take Mito out, Asuna still has the same exact story she does in the film as she did in the book. They used Mito as a catalyst to kind of help get her in the game. Same thing with Kojiro. Like, in the book, her brother's nerve gear is how she got in the game, and Mito's like storyline is not needed. I had rather them showed Asuna at the beginning, like, more time in the film, like, where it was her by herself, to where she goes kind of like more so like a focus on that arc, to where she's like, she's scared, she doesn't know what she's doing, she doesn't trust him, she doesn't know what's going on, and she's just worried. And then her just being like, no, I'm not gonna die like this. If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out fighting. And I wish they kind of focused more on that, because that's the arc she still has anyway in the film. Like, Mito doesn't really have that much of an effect on her, because Kirito and her meet in the same exact events happen anyway in the movie. And this is the second part, on top of being unnecessary. She kind of takes away from the film, because the first novel, that they not only conquer the first floor, but they conquer the second floor as well. So I think it's a missed opportunity of not being able to see a new part of Ironcrad. Because at the end, like I had not read the novels before I saw the first film. And after I read the first, I didn't mind Mito that much. I was like, oh, okay. Then after I read the book, I was like, oh, bruh. I was just like, she has the same exact arc anyway. I was like, why did they even put you in the movie? Because like it's not only that, the second floor is actually really cool too, and I'd rather them cut out a lot of the Mito shit and them actually adapted the second floor as well, because I think the second floor is actually really cool. The boss isn't the most original. It's like this Minotaur general thing that shoots lightning breath. But it's the floor itself is really cool. But in the boss fight's actually pretty cool too. You see a little bit of the formation of the guilds there, and you see you can see more of that dynamic between Kirito and Asuna. So it's not that I hate Mito as a character, especially for what she did. It's like I somewhat agree with Kirito. It's like, at the end of the day, I don't, you can't blame Mito, I guess, too much. I still do. Let's be honest. Like, I still do. But I kind of get where Kirito's coming from, where it's like, Mito still is a good friend to Asuna at the end of the day, and I would say that she redeems herself in 2, but there's a lot of, she's unnecessary as a character, and it's just, I think she was given too much time, way too much time in the first movie in Aria of a Starless Night, because they could have cut out more of that time to focus more on Asuna, and they could have used that time to actually probably adapt at least a little bit, if not the end of the second floor. I think that would have just been a better storytelling move overall, but alas, and she made a comment to Austin like, oh yeah, like not that many people use a scythe, and it's just like, bro, there's no way you are telling me from after what I saw from the first movie, and especially the damn second movie, that more people would not be using a scythe. That thing is hacks as shit, especially if you saw the second movie, like when that fight between Asuna and Mito. It's like, there's no way more people wouldn't be using that thing. That thing's abilities are crazy, especially you can tell if someone had a high agility skill and was fast. That thing would be broken as shit. So, but it really, the character arc that Asuna has in the film is great. I just think it's worth seeing that from the film, from that aspect alone. Her arc of going from someone who's kind of just lost and doesn't know what's going on to like this fatalistic determinism that she ends up having, where she's like, if I'm just gonna die, I want to die on my own terms, which is commendable. To where Kirito kind of drives her out of that, because the point of Kirito and Asuna, like in this, because they kind of save each other, because Asuna, when Kirito finds her, has that fatal determinism to where she's just gonna, she's gonna go out on her own terms. She doesn't have that much will to live. That much will to live, and he kind of helps her find a mainly, like, you see it a little bit when they're walking to the dungeon, like when they're walking to the Kobold Lord, like, yeah, like, this is a game, but at the same time, like, if we were gonna do this in real life, this is kind of how to be. We're like, oh yeah, like, where the party's just walking through the forest and they're going to look to fight the Kobold Lord. And Austin is just like, this is kind of how it'd be in real life too. And he kind of shows her that there can be more, like, kind of helps her, like, put her on the right path to find a purpose, and to, like, give her, like, to help give her that confidence to where she wants to be someone stronger. She understands that, like, oh, this isn't, like, while yes, this is a game, at the same time, I can still enjoy things in here. Like when she used Kirito's pad in her bath, it's like there are pleasures and things that you, like, in the game, that, like, it's not just completely bad all the time. And it's like, this, you might as well live a little bit of life in here while you're in here. And you kind of see that start to instill that in her, and that's why she looks up to him so much. As Kirito is very much the one that drug her out of her suicide run, which she was, because without Kirito, without Asuna, Kirito would have been dead. I mean, without Kirito, Asuna would have been dead. She would have died in that dungeon, like, no doubt. And if she didn't, she would have died eventually. And, like, even if she didn't, like, that fatalistic determinism she had would have jaded her to the point where she would have been a completely broken person. And so Kirito kind of helped drag her out of that. And we see that Asuna kind of helps Kirito because he's just this absolute loner who puts everything down on himself. You see it more so in the novels, especially in 4 with Scherzo of Deep Night, especially when he takes on, when everyone's, like, putting himself down, and, like, they're at the end when the Asuna kind of embraces him, you kind of see, Kirito kind of goes over, like, he's been through so much shit in the past like couple of floors where he just kind of like he's becoming numb to everything at this point. To where like Asuna kind of saves him because she acts as basically the only real emotional attachment that he has to anything. Instead of becoming just this not sociopath, but just this completely isolation, where he's just numb to everything, to where like he himself can enjoy certain things and have that kind of aspect and that close relationship with someone, even though he's in game. So, which is why I love this story so much, especially the progressive novel, because it's really well done to where you can tell that Asuna and Kirito both saved each other. They were both, and everyone was in a bad place, like when the Sword Art Online started. But those two were the two. They find each other and they help each other get out of their pits and just become. And they also help each other become better people, more confident, and kind of just build them up and kind of grow each other a little bit, which is why I love it so much. Again, I love the movie overall. I thought Scherzo was better, just mainly because I can see, for someone who is just like, if they were just going to see this film and they've just seen Sword Art Online, they're more of a casual viewer, right? They don't read the light novels or stuff like that. I can see where they maybe have been kind of disappointed with this one, because if you think about it, it is kind of just it's a retelling kind of hash of episodes 1 and 2. There's more content put in, and again, I'm glad it follows Austin's kind of viewpoint. But at the same time, like, if someone's just like if this is the first time, they're like, well, how is this any different than episodes 1 and 2? It's just like kind of that's why Scherzo is, in my opinion, better. Scherzo at least gives new content, and it kind of shows a new area of Aincrad. So that's kind of my thoughts on why I kind of thought that Scherzo was better. But again, I really love this film. I bought the Blu-ray. I have the limited edition of this film. For those of you who enjoyed it, I would highly recommend it. Right Stuff Anime has it. They're really good. The limited edition looks great. I can't wait for Scherzo's to come out too. I saw like an announcement like last week of like Scherzo's box art for the limited edition, and it looks goated as shit. So I'm really excited to get that one as well. But I'd highly recommend it. Again, if you're looking to own it, I'd recommend the limited edition Blu-ray. It's really good. I thought the film itself was overall, it's really good. Especially if it's still nice. It doesn't even get old. Like, it's just going back and just, it's like, and watching Aria of Starless Night. It's so nice to see just like, the first floor of Aincrad again. Just seeing this too, it's because from where it goes, and it's just it's still heartwarming. It's great. For future films, I don't. So I'm gonna make a video next week, kind of going over Progressive as a series and where I want it to go. Well, not want it to go, but what certain hopes that I kind of have for it. Not go over like, hey, what happens in each novel, just my overall thoughts in the series as a whole and kind of where I want to go. And eventually, I have some other stuff planned, but I'm probably gonna go over like each season of Sword Art Online. But I do want to go over Utenal Ring, the new arc for the main series. I'm not caught up on it yet, so I don't want to make a video until I'm caught up on it. I'm still a couple of novels behind, but I am caught up on Progressive, so I have all 8 novels, and I do want to talk about it. As for future films, I will talk about it in my videos while I'm talking over Progressive as a novel series. I don't see them making a third film for a while. Like, we knew that Scherzo was coming after Aria because they basically announced it at the end of the movie. I'm not sure if they just expected Scherzo to do better box office-wise, which it did well in the Japanese box office, but I'm not sure if they just expected it to go better. But maybe that's why they didn't announce, like, a third one. But if they're going to adapt a third one, I can see them wanting to do Rhapsody of Crimson Heat more than I can Canon of the Golden Rule. I wish they did Canon of Golden Rule. I thought the boss is really cool, and actually in Canon of the Golden Rule, and there's a lot of really good moments in Canon of the Golden Rule. But Rhapsody is like the really showy one, and if A1 was ever going to adapt it, I could see them wanting the floor's a giant casino. It's really cool. There's a really good shot of Asuna and Kirito when they're dressed up in their suave kind of outfits going out to the casino, and I can see A1 wanting to do it. But I don't know if they will for a while. I don't know if they'll come back to Sword Art Online unless they're ready for Utenal Ring, or if they want to wait till Progressive kind of as a series kind of goes into a little bit deeper territory, so they can focus on maybe Austin and Kirito more, because there is that side quest that's still going on in the progressive novels. They might try to avoid, but we'll see. I don't know. Let me know which ones. Let me know what you thought below. Did you think that Aria was? Did you like Aria more than Scherzo? I thought Scherzo was better, like in every aspect. A1 still did a great job on Aria of Starless Night. Again, the animation was great. The music was great. I really enjoyed Aria of Starless Night. I just think that Scherzo gave us new content and it gave us a new area of Ironcrad we really hadn't seen before. So I was just really happy to see that. And again, next week, I'm going to upload my series just talking about Progressive as a whole. And hopefully we get some more Sword Art Online content soonish, but we'll see. I don't know. A1's probably a really busy studio. But, all right, y'all. Let me know what y'all thought in the comments below, and I'll see y'all next one.